Hello, I'm Stephen Robinson. I'm Head of Philosophy at Sussex Downs College, Lewes. And I'm going to talk a little bit about philosophy. The difficulty with philosophy, moving from GCSE to A-level, is there's very little in the GCSE that prepare you for it, or for the sort of questions that philosophers ask. You may come to philosophy expecting to ask big questions, the meaning of life, or perhaps the fundamental question of metaphysics. Why is there something rather than nothing? You may be a bit disappointed if that's what you're expecting. However, we do stray into strange areas. Very often, philosophy begins, though, in a much more mundane sense, with ordinary questions about ordinary human experience, where we start thinking about the principles underlying what we know, what we should do, what we think is good or beautiful. We ask questions about truth, knowledge, the value of art, why we should be moral. But let's take a particular example of a thing that may seem to be part of ordinary experience. For example, if I set you up with a strange research project, go and stand in your local high street with a clipboard and interview young men. Make sure they haven't got wedding rings, and ask them two questions. The first one is, are you a bachelor? And if they answer yes to your question, ask them the second question, are you an unmarried man? Are you likely to get puzzled looks? Do you think I will set you up with a rather pointless task? I think I probably would have done. Why, though? Well, because of this. All bachelors are unmarried men. That's why it would be a pointless task in asking bachelors whether they're also unmarried men. Bachelors are, by definition, unmarried men. However long you spend interviewing people, you're not going to find somebody who says, oh yes, I'm a bachelor, but I'm married. Unless, of course, it's Mr. Bachelor who's happily married. Well, is this remotely interesting? Well, there's a strange thing here. Why is that a pointless exercise? Well, because this sentence is true just because of the meanings of the words involved. We say it's true by definition. But a sentence that's true by definition can't be shown to be right or wrong because of how the world is. You won't find a counterexample. Take another sentence. All swans are white. As a sentence, it doesn't look very much different, but this sentence isn't true. It's not true because not all swans are white. This is a sentence that in fact isn't true because of the meanings of the words. You would only know it's true by doing some research. One black swan shows that the sentence is wrong. So this sentence then can be shown to be true or false based on experience. Now let's just take these ones as an example. Are there other things that we can know to be true by definition? Well, here's some things that philosophers have thought. Maths. 1 plus 1 equals 2. There's deep maths for you. This is not made true by how the world is. No matter how much I count, I won't find a counterexample. I will just have made a mistake if I find an alternative answer. Does this help me? Well, obviously maths helps a lot. I can know, for example, if I have 2 coins and you give me 2 more, that I'll have 4 coins. Does that actually tell me very much? No, it just tells me 2 and 2 is 4. It doesn't tell me whether I have any coins, whether you have any coins, or whether such things as coins exist. I seem to need some experience to get that. Experience is needed for sentences like this. But these sorts of sentences we can know are true or false without experience. Of course you have to learn the meanings of the words, you have to learn maths, but once you know that, you can work things out using deductive reasoning. We give a name to these sorts of sentences. We can know that they are true or false before or independently of experience. And we call these a priori. And an easy way to remember it is it's got prior in it, prior to experience. These ones we call a posteriori. Now, we can say quite a lot about these, including the fact that because these are not made true or false because of experience or because of how the world is, they will always be true, providing the meanings of the words don't change. The truths of maths remain true. We call them necessary truths. You won't find a counterexample. These things we can never be absolutely sure about. Some further experience might disprove them. Now, philosophers use this distinction between a priori and a posteriori truths, partly as a way of thinking about the sorts of sentences that we construct, the sorts of arguments that we make. We can, say for example, David Hume thinks amongst these a priori claims you'll find maths, geometry, tautologies, which this is, a sentence that effectively says the same thing twice, and formal logic. All of those we can work out the truths of them just by using reason. We don't need experience of them. But he says that's all they can do. They can't tell us anything about the world. Other philosophers, the rationalists, think using this sort of reasoning we can find out things about the deep nature of experience. And this sets up one of those great battles that raged for over 100 years between those philosophers known as rationalists who favour reason and those who are empiricists. Having got that distinction though, we can start wondering about it. Are all of these a priori truths true necessarily? That's to say, always true, no exceptions. Truths. Are they all like this? Are there any things that we can know by reason that might be contingently true? That's true because of how the world is. Well, here's some examples. The atomic number of gold is 79. This is something that can't be gold unless it has the atomic number 79. So it's part of the definition of gold. Because something can't be gold unless it has the atomic number 79, it's necessarily true of gold that it has the atomic number 79. However, how do we know that the atomic number of gold is 79? Well, we need experience. Here's something that you know by experience that seems to be necessarily true. This is an example from a philosopher, Saul Kripke. An alternative might be the meter standard, a lump of metal, a rod of metal in Paris that sets the standard for all meter rules made. How did the people who set that standard know that that meter was a meter? Well, they just defined it. They said, there it is, we'll call that a meter. Because they defined it, the definition is not based on experience, they simply stated what the standard would be. But it could have been a bit longer or a bit shorter, in which case it's a contingent truth. So having wondered about this, having to think, oh, well, we have something here that seems to give us a workable distinction, counterexamples appear. Now the philosophical aspect of this partly is in the testing out, the thinking through, when we make a distinction, a conceptual distinction in this case, between one set of propositions and another, does that distinction really work? So more thought leads us to finding counterexamples and wondering about whether that poses a real problem for our distinction or not. Having got some sort of distinction, that can inform us in some of the ways we come to think about the bigger questions that we'd like to get at. Anyway, there's an example. Often I use this as a lead-in to begin to do some philosophy, and we find that this, strangely, keeps coming back in all sorts of strange contexts. And it makes you think about the nature of sentences and truth